Hi everyone, I think this is about take 4 of this video. I keep getting interruptions, phone ringing. Now I've got it on silent, so I won't get interrupted again. I've promised you a video about converting your soup recipes. Now before you even start, you can look at Cookie Dough. If you have Cookie Dough, look at Cookie Dough and see if there's a recipe that is similar to the one you want to make. And then you can follow the directions and just readjust perhaps minor things like an ingredient, perhaps a parsnip instead of a carrot. Not too many changes, but fairly similar. The other option, of course, is the recipe community. That's a great resource because people have already converted recipes to the Thermomix and they have comments there, so you can read all those. Now, there's also Google. Don't forget our good old Google. Google any recipe in Thermomix. You're bound to find that somebody has already created that recipe for you. You don't have to worry about doing it. Now, if you can't be bothered doing all of that or it hasn't worked, then listen to this video and I will go through some of the things that are important to think about when you're converting a soup recipe to the Thermomix. Now, first of all, read that recipe. I know I quite often forget to do that and I get myself caught out at the end. The recipe might have something like breadcrumbs. It's got breadcrumbs on top, or you need to grate some Parmesan cheese, or I don't know, you need to serve it with cheesy bread and you want to grate your cheese. Well, you're going to do all that first when you've got a dry, cold bowl. Okay, not a hot, wet bowl. You won't be able to make your breadcrumbs with that or grate your cheese. Now, if you do make a mistake and your bowl is wet, you can dry it quickly with a tea towel. You can pop your tea towel in, put it on one, reverse, and the tea towel will go around. It's really quicker just to do it yourself. But after you've dried it with your tea towel or a microfiber cloth, put it on speed, take the cloth out if you've got it in there, put it on speed 10 to whiz any extra water out from under the blades. Then dry it again, okay, and whiz it again and dry it again until it's perfectly dry. Okay, so now you've done that. You've got your nice cold bowl, you've grated your cheese, you've done whatever you have to do. Look at the hard vegetables in the recipe. Now, generally, my soups generally start off with a mirepoix: carrot, celery, onion. Okay, if you've got a TM6, you have a mirepoix recipe ready for you on Cookie Dough. Use that. But if you don't have that and you just want to chop your carrot, your celery and your onion, chop them into chunks. Pop them into your bowl. Give your bowl a shape to mix them up so it's just not all carrot on the bottom or onion on the bottom. Now, you should know, if you've had your TM6 or Thermomix for some time, that anytime you're chopping veggies like that, hard vegetables, how many seconds and what is the speed? 3 seconds, speed 5. All the time, 3 seconds, speed 5, and scrape down. Then add your oil because you will need to saute those vegetables. Saute them for about 5 minutes. Now that's pretty much 5 minutes, 100 to 120. Speed 1, reverse. Okay, so they don't chop up anymore. Now, if it's a pureed recipe, in the end, if it's going to be pureed, it doesn't really matter. You don't need reverse. But they're going to actually saute better if they're not getting chopped up too much. Now, after that, you'll be adding your liquids. Usually a stock of some sort. If you have had your consultant over and they've showed you how to make your stock paste, which is the very first thing we do when we come to your place to set your machine up, is we make vegetable stock paste. You should have that in the fridge. 500 grams of water, 1 tablespoon of stock paste, and you have 500 grams of liquid stock. So go from there. Now, if your recipe's got a passata or something like that, make sure that you follow the directions. So you might only have 200 grams of water and perhaps a 500 grams of passata or something like that. Ensure that you're not going over the amount that you can put in your machine. Now for the TM31, the maximum amount is 2 litres. Now that has to include your vegetables and pasta or beans or lentils or whatever you're adding to your soup. So don't forget that. Do not go over the maximum levels, especially if you're going to be pureeing that soup. Right, so you've got your stock paste, you've done your stock. Now, if the recipe has, say, cooked chicken in it, I have a recipe for a creamy chicken noodle soup. If I don't have chicken ready, cooked chicken, I will often put the chicken chopped up in the basket and cook that while the mirepoix and the stock's cooking. And that gives you all the flavour of the chicken. It's not getting chopped up necessarily, but you can add it later if you want to chop it a bit more. Or you can steam it in the Varoma. You can also, say for my creamy chicken noodle soup, I've often freeze a couple of chicken breasts until they're just firm and not totally frozen, not rock hard. Chop them into pieces, and I'll chop them with the carrot, the celery and the onion on 3 seconds speed 5, and then I'll saute that chicken with the carrot, celery and onion. All right, so that's something to think about. How are you going to work with your protein? Now, is your soup a pureed soup or a chunky soup? You need to think about that. Do you really want to chop those veggies to be really fine, or do you want to hand chop them and add them in? That's something you need to think about. E.g., I think you may be adding something after the stocks, sorry, the soup has been pureed. For example, quite often, there's some really good recipes in these books, the Coles and the Woolies magazines. This one, for example, it's a healthier carrot and lentil soup. Now it asks you to puree the soup with 3/4 of the canned lentils and then add the lentils afterwards. So, you need to read that carefully. Don't chuck the whole can in if you want to have that little pop of lentils on top afterwards. And this recipe also has cheesy bread, so you may want to grate that cheese first. There's a few other ones in here as well. And a few people have said a pumpkin soup. Well, I think there's a pumpkin soup on Cookie Doo that you could follow. If you wanted to do a roasted pumpkin, you just simply roast your pumpkin first, and you don't even have to take the skin off, because if you're pureeing it, it will puree up beautifully, unless it's really knobbly, yucky skin that's got scars and things on it. But you'd roast it, and then you'd scrape out the flesh from the pumpkin, from the skin, and then add it to your stock and anything else that goes in there. Maybe a bit of spice, a bit of a Moroccan or something like that. Okay, when you're cooking a chunky soup, make sure you're actually using a slow speed and reverse so that you're not chopping anything up any further. Or you could actually use a blade cover as well if you have one. For a soup with pasta, you'll need about 1,000 grams of liquid per 100 grams of pasta. Now make sure you're using small pasta, okay? If you don't have small pasta, just get the really, really skinny spaghetti of vermicelli and break it up into bits, okay? And pop that in. Now the maximum amount of pasta would be about 150 grams. That's TM5, TM6. TM31, I wouldn't probably go over 100, 120 maybe. And the cooking time is according to the packet. And it may even have it in the recipe how long to cook it for as well. So it's exactly the same. If it's 20 minutes on the stove, it's probably going to be 20 minutes in your Thermomix as well. Now, do make sure you don't go over the maximum levels, and do make sure that you're not blocking the hole in the lid of the Thermomix. All right. It's probably best you should actually have the basket on top anyway, because you're going to have quite a bit of liquid in there and you're going over 90. So the basket's on top to stop any of that spitting and to protect your machine from being, well, if you put the cap in and it's too high and it blocks it, it can be quite dangerous. So do not use your MC, use your basket. Okay, now things with additives like beans, lentils, chickpeas, for example, if they're in the recipe, you've got a choice of whether you need to soak them overnight and cook them first in your Thermomix, or use canned. Canned is so much more convenient, but that's up to you what you want to do, but you need to think about that earlier. You will, of course, then, once they're added, if they're already cooked, you will be on a very slow speed and reverse, and that goes in towards the end. Now, if it's a creamy soup, you can use milk as a part of your stock or part of your liquid, or you could just add some cream in the last few minutes of cooking. And lastly, if you want a soup that's going to be thick, and there's, you want it not pureed, but a nice thick, for example, my creamy chicken noodle soup is a thickened creamy soup, and I just add a cornflour slurry at the end and I cook it for a couple more minutes to make sure that the cornflour's cooked. 2 or 3 tablespoons of cornflour to the same amount of water, make a slurry, and just get the machine moving on speed 2 or so, reverse again if necessary, and pour in the cornflour, or you could just stir it in by hand, the cornflour slurry, and cook it out. I think I've covered everything. There are so many varieties of soup out there that I probably have missed something. If I have, you know how to contact me. So just send me a message on Facebook or comment on Facebook when I post this video, or comment below on YouTube. Until then, I hope that you're enjoying using your Thermomix to make soups. Please do follow me, Thermo Gourmand, on Facebook, and of course, click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hope to see you again soon. Enjoy your Thermomixing. Bye.